Alright, what's up everyone? Today I'm going to be going over some of the Marine Arena basics, sort of tips, tricks, stuff like that. Stuff to, improve your gameplay, or, if you're just, you just started playing the game, and you're a peasant, and you're bad at it, and you want to learn how to get better. This video is for you. And for people who are good, like half of the people who are good in this game, like, don't do good plays at all, ever. Like, they do it like once every like 10 games and still somehow win. So, okay, so the things I want to go over, and my main is Micro Jackson, by the way, best player in A. But, by the way, the stuff I'm going to be going over is like overview of strategy, and this isn't so much like the actual strat that you are going to use. Like, this isn't going to be like, oh, you have to have Raider, Task, Corruptor, even though that is a good strat. But this is more like, you are going to, there's like, I'm just going to break it down to two style of play, right? There's defensive and there's offensive. Now, offensive is going to be the guy who has, like, preferably very mobile units, and he's going in for, like, sniping heroes, and he's weaker in, like, the actual, like, fights. Like, I'm talking about, like, Marine Link strategies, maybe possibly Raider, maybe Air, where you're going in and you're trying to snipe something, or you're trying to flank. You're never going to win, really, realistically, if you are on similar score or bounty. You're probably not going to win the fight, right? If you're taking a direct engagement where the guy who's playing defensive already positioned, you're probably not going to win the fight. But if you're good at, like, flanking and you're really good with positioning, like, you're just playing off people fucking up. Like, let's say I was, like, in a scrim, and it's like an hour-long game, right? This obviously is not going to be my army. But imagine I have, like, Goliath, Colossus, and I move all the way over here for some reason. Because why would you do this? Like, you would never do this if there's any teams left, right? You would never be doing this. And then the player over here is like a Rhineling player. The correct play would be the Rhineling player who's super mobile, tries to get a wraparound. Okay, let's say this team's not here and this team is. And this team's still here, so they're still playing, right? They're probably weaker because they're on the side where they're cross left or died for some reason. So they're obviously the weaker team, right? But they still probably have something. Maybe they have a Colossus or something. But the Rhineling player, would, let's say he is a DT too, the right play would be when these guys are applying pressure, like you want the tower or something like that, or you want some sort of vision, confirmation that the other team is doing something. You wrap around like this, like don't even fight that, like even if he's shooting at you with like a Colossus and stuff, if you wrap around like here, he has to reposition. Like I would have to reposition, right? Like something like this, right? I'd have to be like right here. And then this allows this guy to move over here and hit me, right? And I'm the defensive player, so my units aren't that mobile. Not that mobile. I have Goliath, right? Colossus, so I'm moving back, and my ally is usually terrible, right? So he's probably going to be, like, retarded and just, like, standing here for some reason. And then this allows you to come around, and then let's say that I'm actually fighting this guy because my attention is on this guy. You can come around, Void Prism something, like let's say it's Colossus, and blink on it and go for the kill. And that's how you win as an offensive player. Because basically, when I lose my army as a defensive player, let's say we trade armies, and the offensive player is always more worth it for you, basically. Because your army remaxes quicker than mine, usually. Like if I'm talking about Rhineling, and your army costs less. So if you could kill every single one of my 550 Goliaths, I guess I'm more classic, so I have more supply, but you're winning the trade, right? And you got the Colo, like, potentially, right? You don't even need the Colo to win the trade. But, I mean, you don't want to lose your DT. So DT has 2 blinks for a reason, and you should be able to get it out. If you can't, I mean, that's on you, right? That's not, like, there's no tip that can help you. You're just bad. Okay, so that's how you play as offensive, and defensive player, instead, wants to play super passive. Let's say it's sudden death and you want middle because it's giving you money, and you're in the same position. You're never going to be poking over here. Poking over here is so dumb, unless you're, like, super ahead, maybe, like, that's not even then is it a good idea, but, like, if you're super ahead, and you're just trying to, like, end a game and you're trying to keep their mass low, like, that's understandable, and this team's, like, non-existent and trash because they probably are, and they're doing nothing. That's probably what's going to happen. and your ally can just take him on his own. You could do that sort of, but I still don't advise it, especially if he's playing an offensive strategy. Okay, so like pretty much I've covered it, but like as a defensive player, you want to just have good positioning all the time. You always want to be able to back out if you feel like the fight is like bad or something, and then you always want to pull your hero back even if it's not in really much danger. You just never want to lose anything. That's like your main goal. You're just trying to hold the position for as long as possible without having to give it up, because you're stronger at holding positions than the guy with Ryan Ling, so you should abuse that fact, right? Like, okay. Alright, so the next thing I'm going to go over is like the Mercs in my like S tier Mercs all the way to B tier. Anything under B tier is just kind of like situational, and you probably don't want to go them. Alright, so starting off with my S tier, why the fuck are these things going on? Okay, starting with my S tier, I'd probably go with snipers, lancers, and raiders. And the reason why these Mercs are all so good is because they all are highly mobile. And you know what? I'll actually put Ryan Ling up there as well, even though that is like Marines with a Merc. I mean, Marines are always the best, right? But you don't, like, scaling them early game can be hard. And you could get punished with like Tassadar and Colossus, so I understand why you'd go like if you would go Merc first. Like, you're just really mobile, like every single one of these. And I think the best Merc in the game is Lancer, because Lancer you could just trade like the best possible way. Like, you could not lose it if you play Lancer perfectly, which no one can, but like if you could trade perfectly without losing a unit, and you would always just be trading better. And that's basically what the game's about, just trading better than your opponents, and then getting more money in order to tech further and get more ahead, but with that tech. That's basically what your goal of the game is. Now most people who play Lancer are really bad, and they don't understand that, so they're just gonna grab their Lancers and blink everything on like one hero or something like that, and they're like, oh, it's worth it. No, Lancer is all about conserving mass, and you never want to be in that position where you have to like give up all of your mass, because Lancer is one of those things where you have so much potential with that mass to just hold on to it. So why would you trade it poorly? It makes no sense, but some people will just, you know, don't use their brain when they're playing this game. Now, Raiders are just really good because you can constantly be poking. If you feel like you can't poke your whole army, you can always just separate a little bit, you know, stim them, and just keep slowing, you know, keep poking in, slowing a few, running back, and then when they turn back, you run in and kill the ones that you slowed. That's basically all that Raiders about. And then Raiders are really good for flanks as well, and sniping heroes because of the slow. And then Sniper is just really good because you get more range with your stim. So instead of decreasing with range like Marines do when you stim, Snipers are just constantly at the... Whenever you stim with Snipers, it's just constantly you're gaining range. So you should always be stimmed when you're fighting. And also you like have more range than everything, so... Yeah, that's a really big benefit because you can kite any Merc. But if you didn't know that, you're dumb. But you can kite any Merc, and you can win, right? So that's just always a plus. Alright, so going down to my A tier list for Mercs, this one is a bit harder for me to make up, or for me to say, because I think it's very situational. Like, those S tier Mercs are good in every situation. Even if you're hard countered by the entire map, you can still trade well. Like you could still abuse the fact that you're so mobile to get like good trades, even though you're countered by that unit type. But then A tier is like you can get hard countered, and you're starting to feel that, you know. And I'd probably put for the airs, I'd probably put Void Rays and Wraiths at A tier, because Void Rays and Wraiths are just so good. You just like if you're playing support, I think air is probably the best kind of support you can get. I mean, all-in hero is really popular right now for some reason, but it's just because the game's really busted and just dumb. You should never be able to go all-in hero in a serious game. But the support, you get the Void Rays or the Wraith, and you can just help your teammate always, and you can almost always take favorable trades if you're fighting something you counter. Now, the only time this changes is if you're countered. Then those Mercs sort of fall off, but I would still say you can trade if your teammate picked the right Merc, which he probably didn't, but let's hope he did. And then you guys can fight together and win the fights, and even though you're countered or outmassed or something like that. Okay, so another A tier Merc I would say is, here, let me look at the Mercs real quick. Goliaths and Immortals, and honestly I'd put Desis there, even though they're very underused. They're still very good Mercs. Goliaths being probably the best out of this whole section, because even though, as I said, Goliaths aren't mobile and they're pretty defensive, they just have insane, they're just like a stable unit, right? Like in any fight, they just have such a fast attack rate that you can trade against stuff that counters you because the attack rate's so quick. You can kill the stuff that counters you faster than it can kill you sometimes. And that's especially true with like slow attacking units. And it's, you know, overall, like, Goliaths benefit most from health scale and attack scale, which is always good. Armor just costs too much, and units that benefit from armor are just worse, I think. But I mean, that's not to say they can't be good, right? But that's just what I think. And then, so Immortals are kind of just a weird unit. It's kind of like the unit you want to go when there's Raider and Lancer. You never want to really go Immortals besides when that happens. And, but they're still good against stuff that's not that. It's just because their shield is just fat. Like you heal for so much like they just absorb so much, right? So it's always just good. You can always trade and out micro your opponents. It's kind of the same with Blink, only this one's worse. And then Desi has high movement speed, and the reason it's not S tier is because they just give so much if you kill them. Like, it's 12 per a kill, and they're not that hard to kill. So, you know, Raiders give 9, and I think Snipers give 10, but this is 12, and I don't know, it seems like always their stim just takes away so much health for some reason. It takes away like 15% of their health when every other stim doesn't do that. So it just seems kind of like useless. I don't know. Okay, so then under that B tier, honestly, B tier, you don't really want to be going these Mercs. Brutalisk, like, I can't really think of a situation where I'd want Brutalisk. Maybe I'd put Muta on A tier, but I'd probably put them to B because they seem pretty weak right now. Even if you're good with Muta and you have good micro, you just don't trade that well. And Scouts are kind of in the same boat, except Scouts, like, are pretty brain dead units where you just A-move them really, and there's not really much else. There's not really a high skill cap like Muta's. I mean, there's splitting like every air, but that's easy, and everyone should be doing that already with every other Merc. And if you do it with the other air Mercs, it's just as good, right? So after that, maybe I'd put Warps as B, but I don't recommend going Warps unless you're a higher level and you understand how to use them really well, because it's more of like a troll unit, and you don't really want to, I don't know how to say it, you don't really want to use them if you don't know what you're doing, right? That's the easy way of saying it. You want to be sniping Mercs, which can be hard to know when you're going in for the snipe. You don't, like, if you have to be able to read the map pretty well, and then also just like, you have to, there's like tips and tricks, like if you aim, click your warps on your own CC, like from far away, they'll blink towards your CC, so you can get away that way. And then there's a bunch of other stuff I'm not going to go into. Alright, so the next thing, all the other Mercs, by the way, are probably like D tier, and I wouldn't recommend going them unless you're trolling or something like that. But the next thing I'm going to go over is heroes, and I'm going to do kind of the same format as Mercs. And with S tier being the best, A tier being the second best, and then B tier. And then, so S tier heroes are just, I think only 3 heroes really, actually no, 4 right now, but the 4th is hopefully going to get nerfed to shit because it's a no skill fucking retarded hero that should, like, I don't know why it's as strong as it is, I don't know. But the first, like the best hero in my opinion right now is probably Tass. Tass is good because it's good as Task Form and Archon. And I'm not talking about Archon being S tier, okay? Archon is in A tier, I think. But I'll tell you my reasons, because Tassadar, you can respawn it and you're not, if you lose it, it's not the end of the world like Archon is. Tassadar, it doesn't give them that much. Well, its Storm is still crazy, and I think it's actually more, it covers more area with its Storm than the HT Archon, even though it hits for less. But late games, everyone's Marines anyway, So it's not really gonna matter how much damage your storm does as long as it's at like a solid level. And then I would go with the next one being Colossus. I think Colossus is really, really good. And it's just kind of a neutral hero where playing that you can play defensive with it, and it just really strives because you can keep poking with it and being annoying, assuming they don't have blink or something like that. And it's hard to kill. It's pretty tanky at the later games, but at first it can seem pretty squishy, but it's not at the later in the game. So then the next hero I'm going is the first ultimate on the S tier list, and that's gonna be the Queen. Queen is just really good, and its root ability just makes it one of the better like anti-hero even heroes. Like I think it might even be better than Spectre at killing other heroes. Spectre is it's my favorite hero. I probably have biased for Spectre, but like I'd probably take a Spectre over a Queen. But I think Queen is just better overall. You just do so much AoE. You could use the root to kill heroes. You have creep. You have transfuse. It's just so much utility that you really, no other hero really has anything like it really. And then the last one on this list, the most bullshit hero, and people who go this are just bad in general, and that's Slurker. Lurker is just so dumb. It's like the most A move unit there is, and I don't know why it's so good, because HKs are really good. Like HKs are A tier, I think, and you kind of get fed with HKs if the lobby is not knowing what they're doing, which most lobbies don't. So you just get HKs so quick at high level, and then you can just get an even more OP unit. It's like, it makes no sense. Back when there wasn't Lurker, it was like the guy with the HKs would get fed, but then he would have nowhere to go really he would, but he would have to restart his Merc, and that's kind of the time you could like catch up or do whatever. But now it just goes straight to Lurker and you're fucked. But okay, so then we covered really the S tier heroes, so now I'm going to go down to A tier. And we know that HK is on this list, and Archon, right, just normal Tassadar Archon. And normal Tassadar Archon is on A tier, and it might be S tier for some, but I don't think so, because it just is really easy to kill with a DT Blink. It's just so fat, so easy to click, and it's like so easy to see too. Although it can outrange Overseers, I've seen it go both ways. Like the range on paper is bigger, but I've seen Overseers still stun it when the feedback is queued. Yeah, it's something to do with like the movement speed. I don't know what it is exactly, but I don't know why it does that. But then it's really good because mind control just scales with your enemy. So if you're behind, I think it's better than if you're ahead. Like I think TAS might be better if you're ahead, but if you're behind or on an even playing field, mind control is just a game winner, especially if you can land a fat one and they fuck up or don't stun your Archon. You could just hit like the biggest fucking mind control and win the fight easily. Like they have to back out or else they just lose, right? And then yeah, that's basically all I can say. I mean, the force field's nice for both TAS and Archon. It's good, yeah. Okay, so then another hero that I mentioned was Hunter Killers, and they're just mostly good for the first 30 minutes. After that, they kind of just fall off, but they're just really good. They have huge AoE, they're kind of a glass cannon, but paired with Medi, they just have insane movement. Like you could Medi, juggle, micro the low ones, right? And then, yeah, they just don't die really. They have a self-heal, they do a lot of damage. Early game, it's just insane. They trade with Mercs better than any other hero early game, really. And then on another hero on A tier would be Spectre, the one I went over. And Spectre is just really a really solid choice for you to take versus ultimate heroes. But I don't know, in this current meta, I haven't really gone Spectre much. Like I go it ever so often because it's my favorite hero, and I played a lot of the league with it, and I just really enjoy the hero's playstyle with like the stun and the EMP. There's a lot of outplay potential, but honestly, it's really hard to use comparative to some of the other heroes that are S tier. So I don't know why you would really go that, because the S tier heroes are better in almost most ways. The Spectre doesn't really have much farming potential. It has a good AoE against air, but it's not like you're gonna kill an entire army with a Spectre ever, unless you hit a fat nuke And I don't know, nuke's just so easy to dodge, like everyone sees it. If you hit a fat nuke, I mean the people you're playing against aren't very good. So yeah. And then another A tier hero, I think it's been my last one on this list, is Dark Templar. Dark Templar and also Dark Archon actually. I'm gonna put both of those on. Dark Templar is just the best support hero really. I mean it's arguably Fest Queen or Dark Templar. I could be Nyx, but Nyx is just so situational. You don't really use Nyx against anything but like Lurker or even maybe another ultimate. I don't know, but Dark Templar, you just have a large stun that's almost always available for you, and it's really good with fast-paced Mercs. The ones I covered, the S tier Mercs, all of those it's really good with all of those. And then Dark Archon is just a more tanky version of that, but it's like more of a pain to lose. So you don't really want to go Dark Templar until it's like really late game and you can stack a bunch of armor on it and it just becomes pretty much unkillable. That's when you want to get Dark Archon. But before that, you don't really want to risk it because losing it, you don't have a Dark Templar anymore to stun. You're just out of the game for a few minutes, which after sudden death, you can't really afford that. Okay, so the next tier is all the other heroes, really. I mean, Honey Badger is just a troll unit. I don't really see it being used in pro play too much. I mean, maybe, like, instead of a Dark Templar, you use it, like, super late game, and it has a bunch of armor. Maybe it could do something, but it's just such a derp unit. Like, you'll send it somewhere, and it will take, like, the longest path possible to get there. Like, let's say all these rocks are broken, and I click over here. It will go, like, all the way around for some reason. It's just so dumb. I don't know why. But anyway, then there's Odin, and Odin can be S tier. Like, it literally could be S tier in a game where everyone went air, right? Odin's just elite at killing any air whatsoever, even air elites. And then, yeah, but then it could quickly go to the worst hero if there's no air or everyone gets Nyx and just starts lifting you. That's when Nyx is good. And literally it's vice versa with Nyx. Nyx is probably the better hero here because it can actually counter more heroes with it. Like you could potentially counter Lurker, HK, or any other hero. And then there's Mando, and Mando just is pretty much, you just don't really want to stay on Mando. You want to get spec as fast as possible. I would never recommend really going Mando to start the game with, unless you know that maybe you're like metagaming the guy who's next to you goes a certain hero every game. But it doesn't even counter DT, like, there's elites that counter DT better. There's, like, it can't even one-snipe a Tassadar. It's just bad in general. Like, unless you're a super high-level Mando with lots of attack, you don't really want to be going Mando. Alright. So, what other hero do we have? I think we pretty much covered every hero. Unless I didn't talk about Fester. Fester's really good with support. But basically, Fester's just like Mando. You're just trying to get Queen as fast as possible. You don't really want to stay on Fester for a long time. The Fungal is pretty great for supporting. The Bane Bombs do some considerable damage. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what to say. Like, this hero can easily be A tier, or B tier. I don't know which one I'd rather put it on. But did I miss any more? Did I not talk about any ultimates? No, I think I covered pretty much everything I wanted to. Alright, so at the end, I'm just going to talk about maybe positioning a little bit better. Because at the beginning, I did kind of a overview of strats of defensives and offensive strats, which I think are the two main categories. But here, it's more like position-based play. This game is mostly about positioning. It's not really about micro as much. If you have good positioning, you generally will win, even if your micro is worse. And what I mean by that is knowing when to be where, basically. And this comes with playing the game quite a bit. You're not going to do this the first fucking game you come in. You're not going to have the perfect positioning. But basically, you want to play the positioning around your teammate. So let's say my teammate is going over here. I don't really want to be in middle while this is happening. Because this leaves this is like basic shit, right? Like, this leaves this open. You could get flanked, potentially. You get attacked from here. This guy sees it. He goes over here. Kind of stuff like that. You just don't want to really take a fight when your teammate's overextending in a certain lane. But the ideal thing is your teammate just sits here and clears towers while you're in mid. It's probably the ideal positioning of always. And then when air play comes in, tower fighting becomes a lot more, or a lot better as a source of income. And then you can just trade with your weaker neighbor if they're willing to, which they probably are because they're bad. But yeah, most players in this game don't understand, like even good players don't understand why like certain stuff is necessary to win the game, and it just puzzles me, and that's kind of why I made this guide. Like, it's so easy to win, it's so easy to play like a style, and people still fuck it up. Like, I've seen people who play Ryan Ling and they're just, they're playing defensively with Ryan Ling. They want you to push them. It's like, no, that's not how it works. No one's gonna push you. I mean, of course, like, fucking, like, I don't know why, but, like, someone will push you. Panda will push you. No, I'm just kidding. I don't think Panda would push you, but still, someone would. And you're gonna get money from that, but, like, it just makes no sense, right? Stuff like that. And, yeah, that's kind of all I wanted to talk about. And I hope this video kind of helped you understand maybe the basics, or like even like some of the stuff like positioning, or not positioning, like the defensive and offensive strats is pretty advanced level stuff. Like, you're not gonna know that right away, what's a defensive strat or an offensive strat. But generally, the less mobile strat it is, the more defensive it will be. Like, they're gonna have to come to you in order to kill your shit. And if they fail at that, they lose all their mass, right? That's kind of how it works in most defensive strat. Oh, and I didn't really talk about offensive versus offensive, or defensive versus defensive. Honestly, offensive versus offensive strats is kind of a weird thing. It's not like anything else, where if you're Ryan Ling versus Ryan Ling, it's whoever attacks the other guy first with the void and stuff generally wins the fight, which is different from defensive versus offensive. The more aggro you are, the more money you will receive, right? And then the defensive versus defensive strat is just like claiming the position before your enemy. Like, if you can get mid before your enemy, you win the game. It's as simple as that. Like, unless they're like ahead, you just trade better always. Like, okay, and then I wanted to talk about a few elites actually to wrap it up. There's elite categories. I'm not gonna go over S tier, whatever. There's like Ghost Reapers, really good for feeding at the early game. Raven, BC, kind of more support. Sentry, Vulture, Medi, always good to have. You always want them with any army, unless you're fighting maybe something like pure melee or something like that. I don't know why you'd be fighting that. That player's probably bad. You're probably 10k ahead of him already. You don't need it. And yeah, GG. And yeah, I hope this video helped you.